Welcome to the Shaq and Moo Show. I'm Shaq.
And I'm Moo.
Go ahead, Moo.
And we're blessed to be here at Hood College. Today we're having a conversation with some incredible young leaders who are no longer waiting, but they are addressing the climate crisis in their own ways. And I'm reminded, Sacoby, of a quote that says that a system cannot fail those it was never meant to protect. So that's why the next generation is so incredibly important, because they are creating their own systems and they are making sure that solutions are being brought forward. So with that being said, we're about to kick off the Shaq and Moo Show.
So let's get started with our great young leaders there. India, tell us about this moment in time with climate change and the issues that are impacting young people. What are you doing about it?
That's a great question. Thank you for it. I think young people, at least for me in the environmental biology program that I'm in now, we're having a lot of conversation, which I think is very helpful for young people. I think it's very easy for us to be, we're always on our phone and we're not engaging with one another. And I think us actually having conversations about how we can make an impact is very important. I think also a lot of young people are using the power of social media as a tool to get information out. It's so hard. We've been talking a lot about climate denial in my climate change capstone course and how social media can influence or harm. But for young people, that's how a lot of us are getting that information. So I think using that as a tool is very helpful. And then for me personally, I'm always engaging with people if they want to know more about what I'm passionate about or what I'm studying. Just having that open line to be able to communicate with others, I think it's really helpful. So I think communication is key when you want to make climate change happen. And also I think being able to continuously educate yourself. Don't take just information for what it is. Always dig a little deeper, do your own research. And I think that's some of the things that us young people are doing to create change in our communities.
Lindsay, I want to come to you right now. Change can happen in lots of different ways. It can happen in the impacts that are happening in the urban setting and also in the rural setting. Can you talk a little bit about the work that you do and how you're approaching the issue?
So I am currently working on getting a food garden on my campus. That is one of the ways that I would be working with that. My campus it's not urban nor is it rural, it's more suburban, but we're near a city, Frederick City specifically. So many students who live in the city may not have seen a farm before or even a garden before because they're so used to concrete. They're so used to bricks and pavement and stoplights and steel and all those things that are in a city, but greenery isn't something you usually associate with a cityscape. So bringing a garden to a campus can help teach kids how to build a garden, because a garden doesn't have to be in the ground. It can be in a raised bed. It can be doing hydroponics, which is growing food with water and only water and no soil. So doing that can show that gardens can be on top of buildings. It can be in a building. It can be inside your own house, your apartment, or it can be on your deck or on your porch if you're not in the city. So it doesn't have to be, there's no one size fits all for gardens. It can be anything you want it to be with a little bit of effort. And I think showing that and proving that can really help students and anyone in general build gardens where they want a garden to be.
So let's go to Ahmed. What are you doing in your work? How are you trying to lead and have impact as a young person? Because we need all the young people in this moment to be doing this work. I tell people all the time, I'm getting old. I want to pass the baton. I'll pass it right. I'm going to pass this mic to y'all. So what are you doing, sir?
So since I'm a public health major, my focus is more about advocacy. And currently I'm taking a class on environmental health. So I push more for people to understand the purpose of why we should take climate change very seriously, because everything that from my personal believing and also what I do, the focus is try to tap into people's mind for them to get the understanding, because everything starts with the mind. If we can tap into your mind and make you understand the point and the purpose of what you're doing, then that way you know exactly where you're heading to. So my focus is more advocacy and also social justice as it relates to environmental justice as well. So for now, that's my focus. I focus and push more for advocacy.
Okay.
And I started working on social justice issues when I was 16 years old. And I began to also have an understanding at that time that nature-based solutions, natural infrastructure is incredibly important in being able to address the issues that I would see in my community. I grew up in a rural community, but in other communities as well. Can you talk a little bit about your vision for how nature-based natural infrastructure plays into the sets of actions that we need to do to help people to be in a healthier space?
Yeah. I think for us to bring in kind of natural based things into our daily lives, I think that we need to be thinking of it in a multifaceted capacity. What works for someone else may not work for another person, but I also think the awareness of it is really important. For example, like I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, so very city acclimated, going around seeing a lot of concrete, but my grandmother was a huge naturalist. She was always taking me to different parks. She was always showing me the importance of the environment. She was always grounding me and taking me fishing. So I grew up with an appreciation of both lives. And I think that's really important when I'm thinking about how I'm approaching any sort of natural infrastructure that I'm doing. But I think for a lot of us, one, it's educating yourself. Two, it's also making sure that, maybe you want to approach this topic from a health perspective and you want to go into the wellness sector. Maybe you want to do this from an environmental perspective and you want to go into research, or you want to do GIS to see from the 30,000 foot view, what does all of this change look like? And I really think it is just kind of finding what your niche is and applying that to an environmental perspective. When I came into the environmental biology program, there weren't a lot of people that were talking about environmental justice. So I kind of felt like an anomaly at one point. But kind of as we got more and I started just applying environmental justice to all of the different topics, for a lot of my classmates, it started to stick that, oh, this is an issue and this does apply here. So I think that it's important for us to kind of keep going strong and just, again, continuing to educate and continuing to break the door down the best that we can.
So, Lindsay, the green infrastructure, green spaces, nature-based solutions. You talked before about gardening. Like, think about the power of food. What does food do for people? Can you dig into that?
Yes. So food means a lot of things to many different people. It can mean family, it can mean parties, it can mean gatherings, and for many, culture. It has a very strong tie to everyone as individuals, some stronger, some less so, but it means something. Everyone has pretty much a favorite food or a food that invokes some sort of special time. Whether it is a holiday, such as Christmas, the New Year, some people even do Halloween special foods. Thanksgiving, of course, for us in America. All of those foods we see every day, all year round, but we don't necessarily know where they come from. And in my research for gardens, one of the terms I came across was plant blindness, a term used to describe how we are very disconnected from where our food comes from. We see it in the stores, but we don't see where it was grown, how it was grown, how and when it was picked, and how it got to us, how far did it travel to get to us, and what work was put into doing that. And that disconnect, I think, has us devalue where our food comes from and who did all the work to get it to us. Because back not that long ago, there was no such thing as the grocery store where you could get everything you could want to eat and more. It was, you went to your local farmer's market, and the local farm gave you whatever they had. Now it's, you want fruit in winter? Congratulations, the store. Do you want a meat that is across the world? Congratulations, there's a store for it. But we don't know where it came from anymore.
We've been talking here about, how food is life. Dr. Wilson's an expert in public health, and how important also clean air and clean water is. You, as a person who's coming up, who's studying public health, can you talk to all the other young people out there about why paying attention to public health is so incredibly important, and the linkage, of course, to the climate crisis that we're dealing with?
Yeah, so when it comes to terms of food, that's something that we really need to pay attention to, because why I say that, because most of the health conditions that we do have, it comes from food. And the way food is being grown nowadays, most of the time, the focus is more heavy when it comes to the use of chemicals, which also destroy the environment. That is something that we need to look into as well. So we're paying attention. That was why at first I was talking about advocacy, because when we think about advocacy, everything comes down back to the mind of people. Because sometimes you do have something, but you don't really appreciate what you want until you lose it. So if people start to appreciate what they have, that will be something which will be very critical for them, and also with that idea that resonates with you all the time during your life. So whenever you do something, you have to step back and think before you do whatever you do. So this is something that connects with public health, as I said. Everything that we do, everything that we eat comes back to us. So that is something that we really need to think about. And that's why I'm trying my best to be able to finish this course. That way I'll be able to go back home and educate people on that a lot. Because most of the time, what people do, they just do it based on the perspective that they have from others. They don't usually look and see, okay, this is what has been done in the past, but we can do something different to make a change. Because most of the things that has been done in the past doesn't necessarily mean that it's still useful now. Yeah, it can be useful, but there are some changes that we can do to make more improvement. That way, the environment also will be in a very good condition. Because if we look at this, we are still living on Earth, and also everywhere we find ourselves, if it's not in a good condition, then basically it's something that is going to impact you one way or the other. It cannot be now. And recently I read an article, I think it was one state here in America where they were dumping waste into the environment. They had a factory down there. So at that time, it wasn't really an issue until recently. That was last month when an article came out. They were testing wells, and most of the water down there were contaminated. And people were using this water for quite some time now. They never knew. So imagine the amount of toxin that is in their system right now.
Yeah.
That would be a great health issue. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. I mean, you think about the issue of PFAS, right? So forever chemicals in foods, you talk about dumping. PFAS is dumped into the rivers and streams, gets to the groundwater, you may have well water. Years down the road, we're having all these health issues. We have a cancer cluster. Then you get to track it. There's a factory down the street that was dumping PFAS. Yep. Or there may have been a military operation that was using, it had some PFAS. You may have had some type of other, food where we have PFAS exposure. So I think you make some really important point about just understand like what happened in the past can impact you in the future, right? And so let's think about that. Young folks as the future leaders, in this country. You're saying you're for Sierra Leone, right? Internationally. So what do you see yourselves doing or other young people doing in this moment? Particularly if you think in the U.S. context, right? How are y'all stepping up when it comes to power, building power, growing power, sharing power? Because the way to have impact, I think we have to take our power back. So what does it mean to have power as a young person, and how can you use that power that you have? So I'm not sure, you can go ahead.
Oh, okay. So having power is a great thing, because it also goes down to realization, because sometimes you have a power but you don't realize that you have a power.
Yes, sir.
So you have to realize that first. So you realizing that you have this power and how you can utilize it is very key. So now I see most of the time this generation, because the focus is more on TikTok, Instagram, and also Facebook, which is something that we use often. I would say personally, I use that often to try to reach out to people to make sure they understand what's going on in the world, because some people really live in an environment in the way that it's not like they don't care about what's happening, but because they don't have an issue that directly affects them, so they don't really pay attention to the issue that is going on until they have a family member which is involved, or maybe they're directly involved. That will be the time they will think of, this is an issue now that I need to pay attention to. But now I see most of the people, like young people right now, we utilize social media for now, because that's the great means of getting a lot of engagement, specifically TikTok, to be precise. Yeah, that's what we do. And for me, I'm really looking forward to see how best I can reach out to people as much as I can, to see that the advocacy that I'm doing, to see that it really makes a change in a way that people can put into practice. Because I can reach out, I can do a lot of advocacy, I can do a lot of making videos, which can be in a form of community engagement, wherein we can do a photo voice project like that.
Oh, photo voice,
But
okay.
doing all of that without the change that is being done in the community,
Yeah.
for me, it doesn't make sense. And which is a very hard thing to do, to be honest. It's very hard to do that. But it doesn't mean that because it's hard, that means it's not possible. It's still possible.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, I see a lot of people utilizing social media. That's what I can say from this question to push for a change. But there's still a gap in the system wherein a lot of people don't really know what's going on and they don't even take it seriously. So that's something that also we need to think about from the perspective of young people. I don't want to exclude myself from this. Most of the time we take things carelessly. We don't care. We just sit down and just say, oh yeah, let's just wait and see how that we go like. And most of the time it relates to how we grow up or the places that we are from.
Yep.
Yeah, so we see all of these things going on. Oh well, I have my dad or maybe I have my mom or the environment I come from. People don't really care about this, so why should I care?
So making those connections with folks. Lindsay, you want to go ahead and answer that question too?
Yeah, sure. So, in terms of stepping up, I think young people are stepping up in the way that they are approaching what they choose to learn about on campus and in their schools. In my school, when we do honors projects, we choose a problem that we want to address and we propose a solution for it. Many students at my campus are choosing to do projects related to sustainability, whether it's be in my garden, whether it is how to make urban planning better, or how to get solar panels on campus for solar power, or how to do composting on our campus. And using social media, as has been said, it is important to do that to communicate to people that things are being done and that you can do them. I don't think as young people we see that we have permission to do that. So my campus was very pivotal in me going after making a food garden. If it wasn't for my faculty advisor saying, hey, yeah, you could actually take this further and try to get a campus garden, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. And many students, when it comes to higher education and their education in general, are not informed about how much power they can take. And for early college and honors programs, when I was in high school, I didn't know they existed or I could go to it. They were not talked about at all. And that's a barrier for students who want to take leadership, because that is a very early first step. And if you don't have the opportunity to take it, well, you're at a disadvantage. And then when you get to college, you're kind of just doing your classes so focused on it. If no one takes the time to stop you and say, hey, you can do more about what you care about. You can pursue it now. You don't have to wait till you are so far into a master's degree or a career field. You can start right now, right here. I think that would change a lot of young people's perspective on how they can do stuff, because I think a lot of society tells you start really making change when you go to work, when you're at a job, when you're out of school. It's not showcase that you can do it now.
That's a powerful point. There's a young lady who's a little bit older now. Her name is Destinee Wofford, and she was a high school student in Baltimore with Free Your Voice, and she was able to stop an incinerator as a high school student. So to your point, you don't have to wait. You can do you can lead now. You have to wait. You don't have to wait for me to give you the baton. Take the baton and go ahead and lead. And she won the Goldman Prize for North America in 2016, which is basically like a mini Nobel Peace Prize for her work, right? So to your point, you don't have to wait. So speaking of not waiting, again, that power question, you want to answer? Go ahead and answer that power question for us.
I think to me, one, power is self-awareness. And knowing who you are as an individual and how you want to approach power. I think, a lot of people, when they hear the word power, they can be very intimidated by it. But a lot of times power is being knowledgeable and continuing to learn and wanting to be a lifelong learner. I think that's very, very important. For me as a young person and also now raising a younger person, I think that changes my perspective in the way that I'm approaching, how I am navigating this world, because I want it to be better for myself. I want it to be better for my peers, but now I also want it to be better for the next generation that comes after me. So I think when I'm, navigating my day-to-day life and I'm thinking about power, how am I impacting the people who are around me? It can be, power can be very small. It doesn't have to be something that's grand. It's fantastic when it's grand, but you actually can make an impact in doing smaller things, impacting, maybe changing the mind of someone that you didn't think that you could do that. That's power for me. Being able to learn something new and be able to present it and be able to articulate that to someone else is power to me. And also being able to have conversations with people who've come before you and understand where they're coming from, to be able to take that baton and move it forward is also power to me. So I think that, we have to consider the past, we have to look at the current, and then we also have to be thinking about the future and utilizing each other from wherever you stand on the pendulum of age or what you're thinking about, and use that again to propel us forward. So I think all of those things are really important when you're thinking about power.
So as we close out, I want to take us in a slightly different direction. We're going to start with you, India, and we'll close out coming around. We'll make it short. So I'm curious what role you feel the arts play in addressing the issue, and if there is a particular song, a poem, a movie, a piece of art, whatever it might be, that inspires you and helps to sort of frame out the way that you do your work or where you're trying to go, what would that be?
Good question. I am also a DJ. So I would say, I think for me, when I'm thinking of music and I'm thinking of things that make an impact, I feel like music that did come before me, they really are talking about a lot of different issues. Obviously, the first person for me is Michael Jackson. So I think that, just the way that he was able to approach music and talk about issues that may not be, important or knowledgeable, music is very powerful. So I definitely think that Michael Jackson and many others have an impact on that for sure.
For me, it's hard to say any one type of art or a specific thing has really inspired me, but I think art in general, whether it's music, a film, an image, a picture, a painting, an embroidery, art, really good art, the best art makes you feel something. So I think art that can make you feel or like harness the idea of nature and how beautiful it is, what it feels like to have a green world, to be in a place where you know where your food comes from, you're connected to it, and by being connected to your food, you're connected to your community, and knowing who's around you, having that strong village around you, and having that human connection to the world and to everyone around you, I think is just that idea has really inspired me to go after the project I'm going through and going forward through in order to not just help food insecurity on my campus, but also to build a community, a stronger community on my campus. Because on campus, not everyone meets everyone. There's tend to be cliques. But by having a garden, people of all different backgrounds can come together and work for a common goal and share information and be inspired by each other. And they may have never even met had they not gone to the garden. So I think any art that can inspire that, whether it is a song, a picture, or a painting, a dance, something that can make you feel the kind of human joy and inspiration of connection to people and earth is one of my inspirations.
For me, I would just make a reference again when it comes in terms of song, Michael Jackson. Because I remember when I was back home, that time I was really young, and I listened to the song We Are the World. That song really moved me. And also I would say, when I was in medical school, because my dad, he was a doctor, but he passed away. So at that time I attended the summit. That was where the whole thing made a change in my mind. I said, okay, even though I'm in medical school, I think there are a lot of things I can do outside of me being a physician, so that way I can make a change in the environment also. And But unfortunately, I did not finish medical school because of the war in Ukraine. I had to leave and come all the way down here for me to go back to school. But before I make that move, also, I think of what my dad keeps telling me every time. He keeps saying to me, even if you can go to medical school, or even if you go to medical school, you complete your school, you have to think of the environment in a way that it doesn't necessarily mean that based on what you've learned, that's the only way you can utilize your power for you to make a change. There are different ways that you can make a change. So whenever I remember that, so when I came back here in the US, I said, okay, even though I'm unfortunate to finish medical school, I think I should pick a major or something that I'll be able to go into that will make a larger reach to people. That was where public health came into my mind, and I decided to go into public health. And ever since I've been into that program, the people I've been with, that really made me realize that there's a lot that we can do. There's a lot I can do personally to make a change. But in terms of song, I would say Michael Jackson. Yeah.
Well, we want to thank you all for your leadership and everything that you're doing to make positive change happen. And we want to thank you for spending some time with us today on the Shaq and Moo show. So everyone stay up, stay focused, and continue to make the change.
And I'm Shaq.
And I'm Moo.
We're out. Peace.